Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Ian Winograd. It's 9:24 p.m. on July 5th, 2026, and I'm here to share my medical story with you. I look forward to this, and I thank you for listening in advance. I went to visit my father in Florida with family members in late September 2024. My dad was brain dead after having a massive heart attack during a routine prostate surgery. My father was my best friend, and this affected me very hard. So this is my story. I was obviously sick emotionally and physically, however, in denial about it. My mother, sister, stepmother, and friend, who we will call Tina, wanted me to go to the hospital. I foolishly said no. However, I did end up in the hospital in a delusional state. The hospital was St. Clair Denville. What got me into the hospital was I ordered a pizza and locked myself out of my apartment, and a good Samaritan called the police, who noticed something wasn't right. I had 2 days which I did not remember. The last thing I remember before memories started to return was calling my cousin to tell him about my dad went to take a nap, and then woke up at St. Clair Denville Hospital believing my dad was playing a practical joke on me, and that my sister, my in-law, my stepmother, and my coworker, who we will call Francine, were in Disney World, having totally forgotten seeing my dad dying and the actual Florida trip I took. It took roughly 2 weeks and my sister confirming that my father had passed for the memory of the actual Florida trip to return. Tina was convinced this was substance abuse related, as they had found gummies in my apartment, as I had a THC prescription at the time, which I have since surrendered, although all my drug tests came back negative. What wasn't observed was the gummies did not contain THC, but instead contained THCA. THCA's molecular shape prevents intoxication as opposed to causing it, so the bottle they found was irrelevant. There were guesses by loved ones that I had taken a drug called K2. While that possibility exists, I have no memory of knowing what that substance was until I did research at a later date. The hospital blamed my symptoms on psychosis caused by seeing my father dying, cellulitis, and anemia, along with those gummies. I was released to a substance abuse clinic 2 hours away in Toms River, New Jersey. This was the Evolve Recovery Center, again in Toms River, New Jersey. I did not have the ability to walk at the time. The head staff member saw me and looked at my file and deemed I was not a candidate, as there was no solid proof of substance abuse and I would not be able to participate in their activities. This was after a 2-hour cigarette-smelling Uber ride. They called the ambulance, which brought me to the community hospital in Toms River, New Jersey. In the community hospital, I really just let my body rest after admissions with minor physical therapy. They wanted to move me to their intensive physical therapy unit, but I foolishly declined because I wanted to go home. I was transported home by a medical transport to Rockaway, New Jersey after a 6-day stay and the ability to slowly walk and slowly utilize stairs. The evening I returned home, I lost the ability to walk. I called 911 and the ambulance brought me to Morristown Medical Hospital. Here, They found what both St. Clair's Denville and the community hospital did not find: blood clots and a hernia. On November 5th, 2024, I had surgery in which I was awake but numb that removed the clots in the hernia. I was also told I would have to take the prescription Eliquis for the rest of my life. That is a blood thinner. I was released from the hospital the next day, November 6th, 2024. After I was released from the hospital, I started to get better at a rate surprisingly fast, although my voice was beyond hoarse, which felt like it would remain as such for the rest of my life. I was even able to give a eulogy at my father's funeral on November 18th, 2024, although I needed a walker and my voice was still very difficult to decipher. While recovering, I even spent 5 days with my mother, and every day I walked from 66th Street to 72nd Street. I felt like I was on the road to recovery. Sadly, I was wrong. I returned to work January 6, 2025. On January 31st, 2025, I no-call, no-showed, which in 8 years at the same company is something I never did. They waited 3 days to call my emergency contact, Tina, and the police did a welfare check. They found me passed out. I have been told I was covered in urine and blood with pills surrounding me. I was told there were pictures that proved this, although I ever saw 2 pictures, one of my arm covered in blood and a pill bottle covered in blood. The pill bottle was Eliquis, the blood thinner, and not a drug for intoxication purposes. I was brought to St. Clair Denville again. During my first 2 weeks back in the hospital, I was in a hallucinatory state. I believed I was socializing with the staff, not as a patient, but as a member of a friend group. And I was personally at the Super Bowl with them, watching the Eagles beat the Chiefs. I can only assume the Super Bowl was on the television and the staff members came in and out of the room talking. However, that's just an assumption on my part. I was formally released from my job after 8 years of work, but did not find out until my ultimate discharge from the hospital because my insurance was turned off. This was on February 7th, 2025, while I was hospitalized. It took 2 weeks for the hallucinations to combine themselves with reality, and eventually they went away. Tina took it upon herself to empty out every pill bottle, and sadly those were mainly psych pills. All psych pills. She should not have done this. I spent another 6 weeks in St. Clair Denville on dialysis and other medical treatments. Supposedly, I had told family members that I was on dialysis for my liver. This is questionable, and I could be wrong, as dialysis is primarily for the kidneys when they can no longer function. However, there is a specialized temporary treatment called liver dialysis. It is my belief that I was on dialysis for my kidneys and misspoke to my loved one and said it was for my liver because liver dialysis doesn't correspond with my condition, as it's people awaiting a liver transplant, and that was not my situation. I was then transferred to St. Clair Dover's PMCU, Psychiatric Medical Care Unit. I was on the part of the unit requiring the most minimal amount of care, as they believed I wasn't ready to go home yet, but still wanted to watch over me. This is not embarrassing for me to admit. I spent another 6 weeks there. I went home April 5th, 2025. My ankle was still causing me a lot of pain, although there were no psychological symptoms anymore, and still have not been, other than one night instance to this date. I knew that to get into an inpatient physical therapy rehab, I had to go to the hospital. I called 911 to go to the hospital because I could not walk and knew the system. Please note, I said physical rehabilitation center, not having to do with anything psychiatric. It is there which my ankle was diagnosed broken by Dr. David Klein, who performed reconstructive surgery on it, and on January 18th, 2026 at St. Clair Denville. They then transferred me to Care One, which is an inpatient physical rehabilitation clinic. On my first day there, I was very frightened because it was a new experience and tried to leave. However, this was very short-lived, and I stayed there for roughly 2.5 weeks. I was getting better. Upon leaving, I hired a personal trainer who would come to my house 2 to 3 days a week, and we were making fast progress until my foot went numb randomly. Then one day my ankle went numb. Obviously, the exercises by my trainer and my time at Care One were not at fault, but someone missed something somewhere. I knew I had to go to another facility like Care One, but not Care One. That's what landed me at Pine Acres Physical Rehabilitation Clinic. However, I had to go to the hospital. Again, the law in the state of New Jersey is one cannot go directly to a physical rehabilitation clinic without going through the hospital first. I believe this is counterproductive, however, the rules are the rules. It's my goal to advocate for change in this policy. I had a very rough night, my first night at Pine Acres, because the pharmacy had not delivered my medication, which I believe to be potentially dangerous, to go from a doctor-prescribed medical plan to zero, even if it's just in one day. However, that's how the system works in the state of New Jersey. With my law license, I am going to attempt to advocate for change in this policy, which is utilized in all physical rehabilitation facilities in the state of New Jersey. Other than my first night, my time at Pine Acres has been more successful in healing than any other facility. My voice has suddenly returned to its proper form. The physical therapist worked with me for hours a day as opposed to half an hour a day at Care One. I have lost 5 pounds and have been able to jog and do stairs at a fast pace. For the first time, I am truly confident that while I'm not fully back, my time to get better is here. In my time here, while not doing physical therapy, I was able to write a business plan for a company I hope to start and caught up on Star Wars. I told a loved one I was back, and that might have been a little bit of an exaggeration, but I need to stay in that attitude. I just need to keep a positive mindset, and I'm appreciative of everyone who has supported me along this medical journey, whether or not I believe they handled it a certain way. I know everyone had a positive and loving feeling in their heart when it came to me, which means so much to me. To everybody going through something, you can survive it. I'm a survivor, and you can be too. It's my dad's birthday on Friday. I will be visiting his place of rest. And I'm going to tell him that I'm on the road to being back. Thank you for listening, and I love you. Take care.